I think what best way to start. So what we're going to do today, we're not going to do a formal presentation per se. We're going to talk about AI and we're going to talk about its applications and how it can be practically deployed. So, Michael, please launch yourself off and give an introduction to yourself better than I could ever do, and what you're doing up to. And let's ask the big questions and have a discussion.
Not a problem. Thank you, Patrick, for the introduction. I think it talks a little bit more highly of myself than I actually think of myself, right? No, so I've been in IT since probably 2003. So I'm aged in this domain. Got into AI specifically looking into my PhD program. Built a what would today be considered a RAG application. Before RAG was a thing, before LangChain, before LLMs were released, things like that. I just, I have a love for technology for good. And so when we came to Dubai, we started Falcons AI with the express intent to develop, AI solutions for good. One of our initial products was fall detection, and you can go to our website. It's falcons.ai, and go to our YouTube channel. And if you look at one of the earlier videos, it's actually fall detection. And the rationale behind that was for elderly care facilities to have computer vision systems actually be, on the spot when their patients, have a trip and fall or slip and fall, which is highly problematic, as you start, getting older and stuff. So that was one of the first implementations of like our initiative of AI for good. Following that, we were looking into agriculture. What are the ways that computer vision could impact agriculture? And so, everybody's doing like crop detection and disease detection in plants. So our take was, what happens to the poultry sector, right? In a massive bird flu outbreak, which we just experienced last year, and cascading on from 2002, right, or 2022. And the impacts are catastrophic, from the rise in egg prices. You really don't understand how pervasive poultry is as a protein across the global economy until you start looking at what does a $1 a 10 cent to $1 increase in the supply chain, what are the downstream effects of that. So we developed a solution called Precise AG, which you can actually go to that website too. It's actually its own standalone solution, preciseag.ai. And it uses computer vision. It's just an application that uses computer vision. It's for free for the farmers. It uses computer vision to run a cursory check on poultry health assessment, right? Because there are physical identifiers that pop up with bird flu. So that's what we did. It's not a 100% health check, right? It's just a cursory glance to see if you need to quarantine this bird before it affects the entire flock, and you start having considerable supply chain disruptions. So that was continuing on with our AI for good perspective. So that's kind of what we've been doing. Work with Nizam Muhammad, who's actually a really, really, really smart AI engineer. He's on the call as well. So thanks for joining Nizam recently. And as a corollary to what I'm about to get into, thank you, Patrick, and the foresight to use hackathons to locate talent. I think the current or the previous methodology for talent pipeline is broken, severely broken. So how do you assess talent? Because a lot of people can go take a Coursera course or a Udemy course and think they know what they're doing, and they may take it from someone who's really not qualified to teach it. So how do you see it, right? Hackathons are proof of this person's capability. And so the reason why I brought up Nizam was we just competed in 2 hackathons, actually. One of our products was in-game cheat detection. So basically analyzing real-time gaming chat logs to try to find out if other players are complaining about somebody having an unfair advantage, and giving an alert to the gaming platform to look into this. This is a possible cheat. In-game cheating costs the gaming industry, untold sums of money, because you don't need to purchase the digital assets from them if you can, run these hacks and things like that. So that was the purpose of that. We actually just finished up a hackathon on Thursday, I believe it was, where we put out a solution called Tempestus, and it basically runs through a chaos engineering scenario generation for IT infrastructure and solution developers and design. So if you're not familiar with chaos engineering, it's the intentional integration of errors and disruptions into your entire architecture to find out where the weak points are, right? So it helps you to, or developers or companies, industries, entities, to develop a more stable, more robust, more fault tolerant infrastructure. And that uses the hands methodology, which I developed a couple of years ago, to kind of help the business encapsulate what all needs to be accounted for when developing and deploying robust IT solutions. So hands, just hands, it just basically stands for hardware, application, network, data, and security. So that's kind of an end-to-end quick capture of what you need to assess from a cost and a development perspective when you're building out these solutions. So that was the other thing, the other hackathon that we did. And I think what also you'll get out of these hackathons, that's why I continue to applaud you to go this route, Patrick, is passion. People do not join hackathons because it's a job. They do it out of, passion, out of, I want to create this. I want to, try my skills. I really like this. I'm passionate about it. So when you have someone that's that passionate, that's taking, time out of their own life to enroll and compete in these hackathons, I think you're getting even a higher quality of candidate than you would just running through the typical CV and resume and, oh, let's interview and this person's talking about this. You actually get functional, passionate people to come on board your organization. So, and I think more people should go this route when it comes to hiring. Because like I told you, the current pipeline is broke. Everybody talks about, oh, there's, a lack of talent. There's not a lack of talent. These companies and these corporations' pipelines are broken because they're using the methods that were used when, not calling you out, Patrick, but when me and you were younger, right? The thing, and that doesn't work. That doesn't work in the digital space because talent is not equally distributed. Right. You can get your concentrations of it, but you have to bring them in from elsewhere. And that's the power of, a place like a Silicon Valley. Everyone there is not from there because Google, Microsoft, Apple, all these major innovative companies understand that we have to scour the planet to get the best talent because no one has a monopoly. No one country, no one ethnicity has a monopoly on talent. It is and will always be and always has been equally distributed. So I think that's one of the great things about, groups like this, a lot of other, IT groups that are for the promotion of certain skill sets. That's where you're going to find the talent. So not to continue down this road.
Yeah, I mean, the whole internet has become a great equalizer, hasn't it? It doesn't matter where you're from. As long as you've got access to the internet, you can create something amazing that anybody can access.
That you're 1,000,000% correct. So that's kind of a snapshot of my mindset, my rationale, what we've been doing. So I've been in technology, like I said, since I was a kid, and I've always loved it. And I get to work in it. I think it's fun. Solutions development is and always will be a spectacular. I think human level net positive. That's not really available anymore in the physical world, right?
Yeah. So how, I mean, let's say I'm a company and I've heard all about this AI stuff, and there are generic functions in companies, of course, accounting and R&D and sales and marketing and HR. Where should a company start to think about using this technology? What would be their opening thinking about it? What would be the process?
Easy, really easy answer. There's only two points of entry for AI as far as I see it, and that's problems or opportunities, right? Where are your biggest problems, and where do you see your biggest opportunities? I think it's intellectually lazy for corporate leadership to run this Me Too type of scenario that we have going on, currently today. But I think it always has been from a developer, from software engineering, from an infrastructure perspective, problems and opportunities. Anytime you start getting outside of that, you're going to run into major cost overruns, project complications, You'll have, stakeholders, with different agendas, things like that. But if you isolate a specific problem and dedicate a team to build to that, it's pretty much straightforward. It's easy to pull off, and you could do it a lot faster and a lot cheaper than, me and Azam talk often about, people coming to us with well, we want to do AI, what's possible? You can't ask an AI engineer or any software developer that question. That is too big of a question, because everything's possible in the digital space. We don't have the physical constraints, right? So previously, I used to get asked, well, what type of, solution can you build us? And my answer was always, that depends on the amount of money, right? Do you have enough money to put into your, the idea that you have in your head? Or if you don't have an idea, let me know. I can build you a solution that allows you to reach into the screen and a customer can grab and touch your product. The only question is, do you have the time and do you have the money for me to do that, right? So that's kind of why I don't really go with like open-ended questions. It's the points of entry are easy. What are your biggest opportunities? What are your biggest problems?
Yeah.
Don't build what everybody else is building. Build to your problems. That's what makes companies better.
Yeah.
So
okay. So okay, so I'm a company, I've got, let's say I'm not selling enough, or I've got, whatever. I'll stop with my questions because somebody's asking. It's always okay. Can you Pradiba, can you unmute? There you go. Ask your question, Pradiba, please.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you. So I have a question. So whenever I want to apply some AI to bring in operational excellence, the first question from the decision makers, is it safe for us to put our data into some LLM? Will the data get leaked into the society? So the decision makers, the management is ready to put AI into the product, but when it comes to some processes or making the way of working easy, they are a bit being resistive. So how do you see this?
So you're addressing it from a security perspective. And, we've spoken to this at length of why I don't think solutions like, ChatGPT, OpenAI's ChatGPT, when it first came out, was a good fit. Now you can do it on the cloud in your own, private network, things like that. But if you have the resources, I would always go local. Train a local LLM, run it on your servers, cut off all access to all unneeded parties, things like that. So there are steps you can, take to prevent data leakage. But at the end of the day, our systems are only as secure as the security protocols we use, right? So we are heavily dependent on RSA, HTTPS, and we don't control that, right? So, it's kind of whatever you can keep in-house and keep under your control to the best of your ability is how you circumvent the risk of a data breach. Is it going to happen? More than likely, it's already happened. But can you take steps to minimize the risk or the threat vectors, as they're called? Yes, you can.
Yes, as you said, this involves a bit of resource. Yeah.
Does that answer your question, Pradeep?
Yes, Patrick. Yes. Thank you.
Anybody else would like to jump in at this stage?
So I think she brought up an interesting point about, the business having questions with regards to the implementation of AI. And that's why I continue to go back to, don't just that term intellectually lazy just continues to, creep up in discussions that I've had. Don't just do AI just to do AI, because that's a black hole of money, right?
Yeah.
There's so much compute.
You need a business problem to
data.
solve first, yeah. It's like any other
down.
business, yeah.
Hands down, it's that, what's the old adage of, a ship is great, but if it doesn't have a destination, you're just wandering aimlessly through the ocean, right? And it's the same specifically with AI, because the costs can go ridiculously through the roof at a pace that's blistering. And it's nothing to burn through tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on an AI solution. And that's not the rest of your company's infrastructure or architecture or development. That's just this one initiative. So I think if you don't have that guiding light at the end, you don't have that expected outcome. And why I stress outcome is because they're different than outputs, right? A lot of people are busy. A lot of people are generating reports and, oh, around and projects around a specific outcome, then once again, you're kind of running that rudderless ship through the ocean, and it can get very expensive.
So what about the other side of it though? I mean, okay, so you imagine a startup these days, certainly an IT startup is probably using some kind of AI because but if you're a big company, like as you said, as we discussed, is you need some problems to solve or opportunities. But how would you advise a company to understand what's going on in the market and is that an IT job, or is that somebody in the business who should be keeping aware of the latest and the greatest, the changes, so that when they see something appear that they know that could solve a problem? Because it's always hard for budgets to be allocated for pure like research work. Yeah. So how would you advise a company to structure that?
So that's actually a leadership question. And I feel like, a lot of leaders need to come off of their ego. You hire smart people and you have them tell you what's possible, right? As it relates to your given problem or a given opportunity. So you don't necessarily have to be aware of everything that's going on in the market. You just have to have, the right people in your ecosystem or in your culture, in your company, in your organization, whether it's, academia, corporate, manufacturing, whatever, to actually guide you. And then they can tell you, what is on the forefront, what's being built, what's being done. And that's why I continue to look at like companies have to, our discussion previously about the diversity of perspective. I think a lot of companies get into the process of me too, or a lot of like leadership. They hire people like me, that look like me, that think like me. See, that's going to get you start a slow siloed effect, and you're not going to be aware of, what's possible. I'm not even talking about all of the internal issues that's going to cause. I'm talking about from an external perspective, from a horizon perspective, even in your own industry, that's going to start getting you a very siloed, very, very myopic view of things. So it's the active recruiting of getting smart people and finding out what are you researching. And to your point previously, you have to spend money on that. So I think a lot of
it has to be so the leadership has to be pros, setting a budget aside just for people to track what's going on, because opportunities will pop up.
That is mandatory. Like you can't just focus on the ones and zeros of the accounting side of things, because that doesn't. So Nicholas Nassim Taleb, the author of The Black Swan, he went over a solution called convexity and all of this, and he talks about what is the unknown upside versus the known loss. Right. You don't know what that upside is. And so I'll give you a prime example of that. So I think Google invested in this one company, and it took them, I don't know, like 8-9 years they're still not profitable, but it took them 8 or 9 years to generate, I think it was 10 million new possible materials. And they were talking about what was the benefit of that. I think it cost them like in the realm of $12 billion to have this company running, or this entity running, with no profit, no revenue, nothing. They collapsed over 300 years of research by doing this.
This is deep mind, isn't it?
Correct. Okay, there you go. You know what I'm talking about, right? So this unit of deep mind was just burning through cash. But if you look at what would that cost humanity? 300 years of research. Collapsed into 8 years. See, those are the benefits of having a budget without having, end like we need to make money. No, you need to solve a problem, and you are successful if you solve that problem. And you don't know what the end ramifications could be. They could sell off those materials to, major materials manufacturers, sell off the patents or licensing, and recoup that money in no time. right? That's your profit. But
Yeah.
if you don't have the what's possible mindset,
They had to do all that research and spend to get to that point. Yeah. So
hands down.
we've got a question from AJ on the chat. How to bring the culture of process to have chaos engineering in a stabilized infrastructure? How to justify the expenses and risks because of this? Any reference links to gain more insights?
So actually Azure has a Chaos Studio that you could go and look around and play around in. And there's a lot of materials. I don't have any specific website that you can go to look at like what specifically is chaos engineering. I think a Google search can, lead you down to a lot of tangents that you would find. But once again, I think security is huge and it's always in the background. People are, let's hurry up, let's rush to market, let's get this out, this, that, and the other. But I think chaos engineering falls in the security domain. It's you don't know that you're going to have a problem until the problem happens, because once again, business isn't thinking in terms of IT. So when you have, the CISO or someone in, OPSEC or something like that, yelling and beating the table about this could happen, this could happen, this could happen. That's something that you have to pay attention to as a leader, and it goes back to the mindset. You have to have a leadership mindset that understands that at this point in civilization, everything we do is dependent on people like that are on this call, right? That are in these groups. Software runs the world. Yeah. Hardware runs the world, and you can think not, but shut off all the IT systems at your water treatment facility and watch how fast that region falls into anarchy. Have a major supply chain disruption where there's no food coming into a region, and you'll see just how important software is. So I think it's fine from a business perspective, and I think that's a lot of where the leadership is focused from the business side. But there's a heavy criticality on the robustness and stability of these systems, as well as the security of these systems. That is even though it's getting a lot of pub on places like LinkedIn and things like that, CIO magazine, places like that, it's still not, to my knowledge, in my opinion, at the forefront of where it should be. So that's kind of what led me and Nizam down the road to build out the Tempestus solution.
Right. Yeah. Talking about security, we were at the Intersec conference this year in Dubai a few weeks ago. And it was very interesting in the cybersecurity, which is obviously growing bigger and bigger every year. But in the back, they had this real-time hackathon thing going on, where they had some virtual systems and they had teams of people competing to try and crack this virtual problem. And I suppose, this whole, what you're talking about, the chaos engineering and hiring ethical hackers to test your systems, it's the key theme I got out of it, probably almost the biggest industry now in AI almost is security, because the hackers are starting to use AI for more sophisticated attacks, and the companies building the defensive software need AI to defend against the AI being attacked. Right. So you got no choice.
Right. It's a constant escalation.
Yeah. It's a virtual war, isn't it, going on? Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. And to anybody on this call, if you've ever been to an IT security event, like a Black Hat event, it will send chills down your spine of how easy just the things that we take for granted are to get hacked. Like I was instructed, do not bring your phone in, turn it off, don't don't bring a laptop that you light with any of your data, because it's really easy. And especially with the assistance of AI these days, they're hacking Bluetooth now. So who doesn't have Bluetooth running on their phone like at all times? So
exactly, this is true. Yeah, you got to chat to everyone.
Right. Yeah. And so if you really want to know the importance of security and robust systems, I would challenge anybody, go to one of those like Black Hat or White Hat or ITsec events and bring your personal device. Yeah, you'll be scared. You'll be scared.
Don't do it. Bring a hack. What do they call it? A hackathon, or what do they call it? Yeah, like a one-use phone. Keep it there for the and then destroy it afterwards.
Yeah, what do they call them? Burner phones or something?
Burner phones. Right? That's the term. Yeah. So talking more about the local market here. What decision? Why did you make the decision to come to the UAE, and what opportunities have you seen there, and how's it been working in this environment when you're at the forefront of AI and AI technologies?
So first and foremost, we came here for, the safety and security, as well as, the thirst, I guess, for technology in this space. And hands down, the UAE government is spectacular with all of their initiatives and what they're doing. Have some projects with the Ministry of the Interior that are like really, really, leading edge type stuff that I'm actually, impressed that it's actually a government, entity that's doing this.
Right.
I think on the other side, the downside of being in this region is, what I think we spoke to previously before the call about, a lot of people are like, oh, we want to build the Silicon Valley of, X region, whatever it may be, the UAE or the Middle East or, Asia, whatever. And that sounds in theory great until you get into the actual application, because there's a high level of risk aversion, my experience, outside of, the US and specifically that Silicon Valley region. And I mean, it's a lot higher than I've expected. So that's caused a lot of obstacles for us specifically. Because, when you say you want to do what Google does, or you want to do what a Microsoft or an AWS or an NVIDIA does, well, back to what you're talking about previously about, setting aside budgets for R&D that may just be burning money. You don't know. And so as opposed to having the mindset, and this is what I constantly hear going around to events here and speaking to people here is, well, what's the product market fit? See, when you start off with questions like that, those, instead of asking people what's possible, see, that kind of opens it up. And you have a hackathon where you're like, here's some tools, and this is going to play into that. Here's some tools. Let's see what you can build. See, that's innovation. That is, facilitating that ecosystem of what's possible. Because going back years ago, and this just as well as I do, if Google had to justify their product market fit back against Yahoo and Lycos and X, they would have never made it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And I mean, if you think about it, why did they even release Gmail? There was Outlook and all these other services, right? So I think my experience here, the obstacles here are in the public financing of solutions. Everyone's looking for what's the product market fit, what's your timeline to generate ROI and this, that, and the other. And so why I bring this up, and I'll bring it all together, why I think, organizations like, Decoding Data Science is good and these events are good, is because innovation is the triangle. If you think about it like a triangle, this is how I pitch it. It's mindset, it's tools, and it's data.
Right.
So if you have the mindset, the money's going to flow in to build the tools. Well, the tools are only as good as the data that they're using. And so once you have all three of those, you can actually do some really high-end innovative work. I was on a call previously with a company called Arise, and they were saying, well, what are my thoughts on data monopolies from, like the West and things like that. It's an easy fix, but you don't see it. And the easy fix to me is anybody in an AI program at a university, wherever you are in the world, that university should have criteria that as your capstone, you have to contribute a data set to an open source community. Think about the explosion of data that will be out there to build better tools now. Because now you have, say if it's coming out of, the Middle East, you have very specific data that's very localized. So the accuracy is going to be a lot higher, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to grow, depending on what market you're in, and you have these tools, you can pull the data from these regions to get even, to come up with better, more accurate, faster solutions to a given problem for that specific region. So, and I think data gets really overlooked when it comes to AI and all the AI hype cycle that we're running into now. But it's foundational. If you don't have the data, you don't have AI.
Of course, I guess in the US, access to data is so easy, isn't it? So they already have a built-in advantage, or Europe, etc. What about access to capital there? I mean, I can see that it's improved here over the years. But like in Silicon Valley, I've got a friend who's got a startup in the US, and he's actually in Los Angeles, not San Francisco. And it was so easy for him to get the capital to get going. But he'd been out here previously, and he struggled a lot. Couldn't get access to capital. He said, right, give up. I'm going to Los Angeles / Silicon Valley. And within 12 months, he'd got hold of a capital. And it seems like the culture there is, yeah, here's some money, have a go. And he went through 3 or 4 projects. So he failed the first 2 or 3. This one's working really well. But after he failed the first times, they said, don't worry. Think about what you did, what went wrong, what went right, come up with a new plan, and we'll give some more money to you. Because they seem to, know there's that risk assessment. They know, like, out of 100 projects, 1 will be a unicorn, 3 will probably do pretty well, and the rest will fall apart.
Right. Yeah. And even in 0 to 1, Peter Thiel, like the most famous VC of all time, right? He talks about that. He's batting, what did he say? 3-4% out of 1,000 companies that he's invested billions of dollars in. Right? Who do you know that has the stomach for that other than, investors from the West? I tell people all the time, the one thing that's different about over there and the mindset is we're gamblers.
Yeah. And there's a culture here of fear of failure as well in this part of the world.
So there's the shame aspect of it, right? Yeah. And so that's not really big from a business perspective over there. At least you tried. Woo, you tried. What did you learn?
Exactly. Right? Yeah. It's like it's a badge of honor.
Right. So in my experience outside of there is there's a shame factor. And so that ultimately tamps down the funding or the resources available because nobody wants to say, hey, I made a bad investment. But you know what? If Peter Thiel is single-digit success rate and he's the most successful,
exactly,
that's a goal.
That suggests something. Yeah, very strongly.
Right.
It's worth putting the risk.
Right. And I mean, but what's even funnier to me is you have people starting restaurants all the time, and that is the #1 riskiest business endeavor is a restaurant.
Yeah.
You talk about competition. You talk about competition. So, so that's what I've run into, and that's kind of, my perspective in regions outside of the states is that risk aversion, and it is much greater. So your friend is right. It's much greater outside of the states than it is. So that's the #1 factor I think that is preventing going back to the triangle, right? It's that mindset. You don't have the right mindset, so you're not going to put the money in to build the tools to help the people to generate the data, to build better tools, to generate more money. So
it becomes a virtuous circle that just grows and grows.
It is. Once one of those pillars fails, then you have nothing else. So that's what I think is stifling. Because once again, like I told you before, talent is equally distributed throughout the world. There are geniuses everywhere.
Yeah, for sure.
But if you have access to funding,
Definitely. Anybody else want to put in some questions? Raise your hand, post in the chat. Don't be shy. Come on. You're normally more talkative in this. I'll give them a chance to raise some questions. Where do you, with what's going on, obviously everything's changing so quickly at the moment with the technology. Where do you think we're going to be in 5 years? What is going to be, what are your sort of projections for the future with this technology?
So I kind of shy away from projecting the future.
Come on, we're gonna have a meeting in 5 years and cross off.
Greater men than me have tried and failed, right? No, I think what we're looking into is just ridiculous advancement. But I think we do need to kind of worry about who is in charge of this advancement. That's why I'm all for, going back to my talent is, spread out across the globe, funding all of that talent. So there's an equal benefit, and it doesn't just get, sucked up into the fold. With that being said, from the data perspective, if you look at why there's an advantage in the English speaking sector is because what is the majority of the internet built on? The English language. So English, there's more training data for English models. And that's why it's even more critically important, going back to the one avenue that could be done for local university students to, build out, regional data sets, is to kind of balance that out. And then you have a more robust large language model or AI solutions that you're getting into. If you look at from a facial recognition perspective, right? there's a huge, bias in AI problem, because what is the majority of the training data for these facial recognition systems? Right?
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
it's not global in perspective as it should have been originally, but it was just trying to get something out there, and I understand that. So yes, there needs to be more pictures, more culturally relevant imagery and text added to these data sets for training these models that impact human lives.
Yes. I
think moving
I
forward,
posted something on LinkedIn the other day, and I generated a picture of Microsoft Copilot, and it was about AI and manufacturing or something. I know I didn't click, but all the pictures it generated had men, and I posted this thing up. And then somebody complained in the comments, and women go, "Why are all your pictures of men in them?" And I didn't click. I said, "Well, it's bias in the system, I guess." Yeah,
hands down.
manufacturing men, they don't associate, the system didn't associate women in the manufacturing industry, maybe, or something like that. So we know there's a lot of bias in these systems. Yeah.
Right. And so that's one of the, I'm not like a fear mongering or anything like that, but that is one of the things that we need to be cognizant of is AI is not bound by, human criteria. So it just thinks like we think, but so much faster with more data. So whatever bad biases or decision making we have, if that's in the training data, it's just going to come out that much faster. Everything is just going to move. To me, everything is just going to move that much faster.
Yeah.
Me and Nizam talk all the time about, for your future projection thing about, AI and jobs, right?
Yeah.
That's the hot button issue.
Well,
And
yeah.
so,
Are we going to lose all our jobs? Yeah, this is
no, because there's an issue. I'm sorry.
I want to ask a question after your turn.
Okay, spectacular. So there's an issue with AI code being or AI generated code, right? And once again, me and Nizam speak about this probably all the time, ad nauseum, probably, about AI generated code, Copilot. We just did a project with Phi2, things like that. That's going to make good developers better, but it's going to make average developers awful. And here's why I say that is because you have all this code being generated and being pushed to production. And yes, it may work, but what happens when you need an enhancement or you need a bug fix? And they don't understand the code that they pushed a year ago.
Exactly.
As developers, we've all got code out there that we're ashamed of, after the fact. But we can fix it because we did it. We can just get back in that, train of thought, or, it was very well commented and we know our line of thinking at the time. But what you see right now is a lot of senior talent being cut loose by these tech companies because they can get junior talent to generate a lot of, let's be honest, low quality code a lot faster. And yes, it'll work, but what happens? There's going to be a lot, and me and Nizam literally just talked about this 2 days ago. There are going to be a lot of application outages over the next 2 years. Watch. And it's because you've cut out the senior developers because of money, and you had junior devs and novice devs generating all of this AI code, and it's going to be a
big problems mounting up. Yeah.
Technical debt is going to be through the roof.
Yeah.
But go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, sure can. Go for it. Ask your question.
Yeah. What is the job profile of a research manager in AI? Like, what is expected from him as a research manager?
I can't speak to that. I can only speculate.
Okay.
If you're with a good company, you probably have a lot of leeway. I mean, as long as you have, what are we trying to find out, or what's the answer to X? As long as you're a research manager and what you're in charge of, has a port that it's trying to get to, but going back to the ship in the sea, or you have an outcome that you're driving towards. I think that's kind of what you're expected to manage is, are these projects, are these researchers, moving us in that direction to get that answer, right?
Okay, understood your point. So
that,
I was thinking
that would be my, when we get to the point that we hire a research manager, that is going to be their number one priority. I don't care about anything else.
Because
are we making strides? I'm sorry?
I asked JD for the role, and they said we will get back to you. So was it right or wrong asking for JD? for such roles?
No, I think it's right. I think you should, that's what you stand on, right? And this is kind of getting into, HR side of things. And I wrote a scathing comments on LinkedIn a couple times about my issues with hiring managers not knowing what the actual job is. And so they want, and I'm showing my age, obviously, they want a Linus Torvalds to do help desk, right? Linus was the one that developed the Linux kernel. They want somebody with, all of these skills to do, menial tasks. And to me, that's the disconnect between HR and the actual job role. So how I've gone about this in the past to alleviate that is to do what we call run books. So when we start getting into the groove of things, okay, so you have a daily, a weekly, and a monthly run book. And that just is in case you're out, in case you're on vacation, or in case you leave the company, and I need somebody to come in and take over where you left off. They know pretty much what they're supposed to be looking into every day. They know what they're supposed to be looking into and managing and monitoring every week. So if you get a JD and it comes back with very ambiguous terms, I don't know what your specific situation is, but I would say be very careful about taking that position, because you may have you may become a firefighter. You may just be running around putting out fires all the time and not have an actual, goal that you're pushing towards.
Right.
Yeah, got some idea. Thank you for this.
Absolutely.
Once we give the JD, then we can find out what actually the role they are doing.
You have to have a map. It's just like life. You have to have a map. And so what I normally do is, here's the criteria that you're going to be graded on, right? If you do X, Y, and Z, you can literally have no fear of being fired. That's just what it is, right? So I try to remove the uncertainty from that, right? I don't like an uncomfortable work environment. So this is what the criteria is, and if you're doing this, everybody's winning. So I have no problem with you.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Rajesh, she's raised his hand. Do you want to ask your question, Rajesh?
Thanks, Patrick. Thanks to Rajesh. I'm from Sydney. So just curious to understand what advancements can we expect the application of AI in education industry. I've got a follow-up question on some ideas. I just wanted to see where are we heading, what's the maturity level in the education in AI, applying AI in education now, and where are we seeing, how far are we seeing it?
So I think AI in education is going to be huge, but so the problem with the education and academia is, I'm quite sure we've all seen the memes. You look at like a car from 1920, a car right now, a phone from, the 1960s, a phone now, a computer, and then you look at a classroom from 1920, and then a classroom now, and it looks the same. Well, there's a reason for that. And it's the same problem in agriculture. It's academia. Certain industries are very, very, very resistant to change. They just are. And I don't know if it's, the powers that be or whoever's running these institutions or things like that. I think AI can it's just a tool. It can have a spectacular benefit from personalized tutorials, a way to better, digest information that's giving to you from a student perspective, catching students that are maybe falling outside of the standard deviation of where they should be, and augmenting their assignments to kind of assist bringing them up to speed. Like there's a plethora of benefits that I can't even conceptualize. But at the same time, what are the problems, right? Using ChatGPT to write your papers, and then so once again, just like with coders, you have the same thing with students. AI can make really good students spectacular. It can make really poor students that much worse because they're getting lazy now. So it all kind of goes back to how it's deployed and the person. And what me and my wife speak to this a lot, actually, and I tell her, technology is just like a kitchen knife. It can be used to cut up your steak or cut up your neighbor. It's just it's a tool. And it can provide benefits to the pro and to the con. Education is very dangerous, though, for me, from my perspective, on how it's deployed, because you're talking about direct impact to everybody's future.
Yeah.
And when you start looking at it in that context, that kind of, should, my opinion, give all the adults in the room, a pause for a minute to think about, yes, this is going to change the functionality of the brain of the people that are going to be leading us in the future. And a prime example of that is doom scrolling on the phones and binge watching, videos, right? What effect has that had on even our generation? Our attention span is ridiculously small now. It's we think it's an accomplishment if somebody has read a book lately, which is insane, because nobody takes the time, nobody has the attention to actually sit through a book. So I think the benefits are spectacular for education, but I think we should be very concerned about what this does to the actual workings of the brain of the children moving forward.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, just yeah, exactly, you're spot on that, because I had some thoughts on investing on research on building a personal models on personalized tutoring that basically, very personalized, targeted for certain, students, maybe disability students or students based on their grade level and their many products absorbing levels. But sometimes I think
I would tell you to do it. I would honestly, I would tell you to do it, because I think there needs to be a much more diverse tool set out there than it is. Like, I really like Khan Academy. I think their knowledge graphs and how you track it is spectacular. But some of the things I think are antiquated, and they're not updating as fast as maybe they should. It's a spectacular platform, but once again, I'm all for technical diversity. 1,000,000%.
But the fear which I had was like, because now it's good, like it's just starting up, it's trying to bubble up, bubble over, and also like AGI is coming up, and also this personalized tutor is also a big target for big guns like Microsoft and Google.
Right.
If I invest on this, would I be able to compete with them? They'll just throw me off just like that. So is it really
but isn't that always the challenge? One of my number one consulting questions I always used to ask was, yes, you're number one in this, or you have everything under control, you're making money, you're profitable in this region. What happens if Amazon gets into your business? Are you dead tomorrow? So these are some of the things, that you definitely have to think about. I think you're wise to that. I still feel like there has to be a diversity. Or you can look at the positive side of things. What happens if Microsoft decides to jump into, your domain and they buy you out because your technology is just that much better? So you kind of have to do.
Because I had the thought process of moving that to humanoids. That means it becomes as a mentor, as a personal sort of a mentor for a kid. Like it's like a lifelong mentor. It just goes through that. It just understands from day one, and grows from it, becomes as a consultant or as a tutor, a mentor, model, or like a role model, and it just understands the emotions part of that. But it's just a lot of research and investment is required. Do I?
Okay, so here's my question to you. Here's my question to you, and this is kind of how I view it. If your solution, if you put 20 years into this, and your solution helps somebody that you love, was it worth it?
Yes, it really works.
Well, there's your answer. There's your answer. If it's worth it, if it helps someone you care about, think about the people that are going to help that don't even know you. So
that makes really, really sense.
That's my assessment. And I'm not bashing anyone that has any social media technology that they want to build or anything like that. But I try to stay away from any of like the social media content generators and all of this other stuff. Like, I've done that, but does it add value? I always look for, what is the utility? Can it actually help someone? And I don't mean generate videos or generate text or, all of this. That's all well and good. Does it actually have quantifiable life values to somebody? If the answer is yes, then I would tell you to do it. Do it.
So that was what the fear which I had. I invest on that, get all the things in. What will happen if that was, I mean, exactly what I said before. So now you have given me that bit of a clarity there to keep moving. Okay.
Yeah, I'm all for AI for good. I mean, that's literally the mission of Falcon's AI stuff. You know, if you're going to build, you know, a educational tutor, a lifelong tutor that actually is functional and it can skew to the person's, you know, getting them you know, at or beyond their current level. Education is the ticket. It's what got civilization to where it is, right? So I would tell you, go ahead and do it.
Yeah, you can just we can expand on so many use cases, like, you know, doing household things. It's part of that. Is just become a helper and a role model, and but it's just immense, endless. But it's just that the fear at some point. I started to research. I spent almost a year on that. Then I started to get this fear on what would happen, like the way the technology is moving, the big guns are moving. I would be thrashed over time. So would I? That's what the fear.
But the reality is that shouldn't matter to you. I mean, so I tell anybody, so my view of technology is a little bit different. I don't see it as this huge money pot, right? I'm for technology for good. So if what you have in your head, you can put into the digital space and it's actually going to help another human being, where's the question?
Makes sense. Absolutely.
Where's the question? If you get into this purely for money, you're wasting your time. Go be an investment banker. Go that route. There's much more money and it's much less headache.
You're right. Absolutely.
I mean,
thank you. Thanks a lot, Case, for that.
Well, I mean,
absolutely.
It's interesting because like Elon Musk says, I'm just doing it to help humanity, and he just happens to become the most richest guy in the world off the back of it.
I mean, you know, that's Elon is a whole nother subject.
Well, true.
Really smart, but there's some problems underneath.
Oh yeah. I was just finishing off reading his biography, and he's an interesting character. Thank you, Jeffrey. We had a question, kind of sort of related, from Mohammed Belal in the chat. Do you think students could benefit from AI to improve their learning experience rather than use it as a cheating tool?
Hands down. That goes back to, you know, the question previously about, you know, it can be used to identify deficiencies with regards to where the average student is along the you know, standard progression. It can also identify, you know, who's above that level, and then tailor the content, the actual teaching content, to that specific student. So what I was looking into previously, I don't know if I'll, you know, pull the trigger on it, but what I was looking into earlier this year, I have a 7-year-old son, is looking at basically like a notebook type of thing, where you type in like, okay, this is my, you know, you have to obviously set up the initial parameters, right? You know, this is the student's age, you know, this is kind of the region that they're in, this is their dominant language, this is what they've been learning over the past 4 weeks. And then have them just basically a Google search bar. There's nothing for the kids to get distracted with. And they just have a conversation, and it's actually a teaching conversation. So to me, what this helps facilitate with specifically a son of my age is reading comprehension, right? So they're gonna have to read, but also have the vocal component where they could, you know, just, you know, click the microphone and speak. And then there'd be certain exercises that it would say, speak this statement, and then do vocal analysis. And then, okay, type this statement. And while it's going over just a wide range of topics that they're actually learning, that they don't realize they're learning, it's just a kind of audio and reading type of interaction. So that's one of the huge things from an education perspective that me as a parent in this industry would just gush over. I would just love to see that. That would just be like, wow.
I mean, I remember when I was a kid, it was a long time ago, but you know, you had a physical textbook which you had in the class, and that was it. You could take it home with you sometimes and read it. But if you didn't understand something, you were buggered. But now, these days, if a teacher doesn't explain it, you can go onto YouTube and watch a video as many times as you want to teach the concept. Yeah, so it's, you know, that's
what kind of drove me down that path is, do you remember Which Way books?
Yeah.
See, you actually got to decide what actions the character took, and it would take you to a different section of the book. I loved reading those books. Every other book I hated. I literally, if you ask me, I hate reading. Right. Every time we had a book fair, I would go buy a Which Way book. So
Because
you know, it's one of
it's the
those-
uncertainty, the imagination, you know, the chances of
right, the engagement.
Yeah,
And
engagement.
so if you look at what's possible now for educators,
Mm.
the level of engagement is through the roof. And then if you start going, you know, a level deeper and you
Mm.
start compounding it with like AR, VR, you actually can get kids to love
Yeah.
learning.
Yeah.
Learning. We have to come up with a new term for it.
You wonder if traditional schools will die, you know, people just learn this stuff in a virtual reality world, you know. So
Honestly, I have no sympathy
yeah.
because, you know, I'm more of a, you know, most effective, best leverage should win.
Yeah.
Not from like a, God, you know, that type
Yeah,
of
yeah, sure. I
aggressive,
understand. Yeah, yeah.
but of what's easily accessible and better for more of humanity.
Is the West way
If
forward.
if if,
Yeah.
if the alternative is the current education
Yeah.
system, then it's got to go. I don't.
Yeah.
There's
So a personalized AI, whether it's virtual or robot, sits next to you all day and just helps you, and that robot will understand you, exactly what your learning needs are specifically to you, and would help you push you forward to the things that you're struggling with. But it'd be hyper personalized.
correct, and actually test that you're not. It's not memory based.
Yeah.
It's actually reinforcing critical thinking, which I think is sorely
exactly.
missed.
Very
Sorely
important.
missed.
Yeah, very important. Yeah, learning how to think.
Specifically from an education perspective.
Yeah, definitely.
And I'm, you know, me and my wife are #1 fans of education. That is the ticket, you know, out for a lot of people. So
Exactly. Any other questions out there? Anybody else want to raise their hand and jump in?
any cool projects anyone's working on? That's always what I like to talk about.
Ah, yeah, good point. Yeah. So
Yeah.
what are people working on? Come on.
So nobody's working on anything that they find interesting. I find that.
Yeah, I'm just like just told before, just working on the personalized tutor for kids. Like it's more of a primary kids to start with.
Yeah.
So it all started with my son doing homework and he couldn't catch up. Eventually he goes like, you know, depressed sometimes. And,
Yes. Yes.
And it just overwhelms, and he gets the shots from his mom sometimes. Like, you know, he couldn't finish up, and I keep noticing it keeps repeating every day on day on day. So how can he come up with it? That's how the idea came up, and started to build the data model. Now we started to research and go back to schools and, you know, get their curriculums and what we have, and, you know, talk to students and kids like that. It's almost like it's still on an initial stage, like, you know, but yes, I'm just collecting the data model now, and after that, I have to be trained. But yes, it would take some.
No, and so you just brought up a point that I want to actually highlight is you're talking about, you know, the emotional stress. So I think,
Yes.
you know, any failures in education, there's definitely a mental health component that impact that can have, and that can actually cascade through life. Because, you know, I was, like I said, you know, growing up, I was one of those students that to myself, I didn't like to read textbooks and things like that. So, you know, I would fall behind, and then I hated school.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's why you see so many dropouts. Like, you know, just that's what it was, because they could all about what's the right way to learn the subject. If they don't know how to learn it, like even if they do, eventually, like, you know, they get that mental response.
Correct. But I don't, and this is another thing another one of the issues that I'm not maybe qualified to, you know, fix or solve, but, you know, there's a serious mental health issue that doesn't get addressed by the school systems by this, you know, memorization model that we've all had, right?
Absolutely,
But if we can deploy tools that are more of an active learning,
exactly.
you know, you have an aptitude for this. We're not going to punish you because you're not skilled in this. I think we'll see a much better turnout, much higher success rates.
I have an example of that. So in the UK, in London, we have a black cab drivers, right? And in order to become a black cab driver, they have to do something called a knowledge, which takes 18 months to 2 years, where they have to learn London intimately. So in the test, for example, the guy will say, right, if you drive down that street 2 kilometers that way, past that building. What's the name of the building on the left-hand side? And what's the one-way system like over there? And these guys are normally people who left school at 15, 16 because they couldn't handle academia. But their minds are perfectly tuned to learning the most incredible, complex geospatial information, but they're learning it in a way that they can, you know, these are people who are not traditional academic people, but they can do it.
You are 100% correct. I'll tell anybody, if you ever get a chance to go to London and speak to those black cab drivers, they can tell you almost to the sidewalk square where things are.
Yeah, it's crazy.
We've done that.
They've all,
they give you so much history about why they're tall because of the top hats that people used to wear. Yes, you're one of the fact that their school, the majority of them, like you said, were, you know, like high school dropouts and stuff like that, is amazing. If you actually speak to them, they're some of the most knowledgeable people you'll run into.
You're right.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Any other questions?
Yeah. We're coming to the end of your time, Michael, unless there's any other questions.
Okay.
And I know you must be busy, probably interfere with your weekend. I don't know if you're working today or you're chilling with the family, but
always working.
I can imagine.
Always working.
Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. We'd love to get you
No
on.
problem. Like I love discussions like this, and you know, Rajesh, if I helped you out, that's what I love.
Michael, you have been amazing. Like even Patrick, and this is really thanks for the opportunity. It's given me more insights and given me the confidence to keep moving. So just, you know, I would at least probably like another 6 months from now, you would have a better, more. I would definitely be in a better state where we are now in terms of that. Yeah, I'm already like, you know, just talking to a few humanoid companies. One of my friends back in Bangalore. So we're really having that conversation, you know, how we can take this model and, you know, that to the humanoid and slowly start the training models. But we just got a very early stage. There's a lot of data to be collected. I'm targeting the New South Wales education here in Sydney. So New South Wales, I'm based out of Sydney, New South Wales. So we're targeting local curriculum first. And yeah, it's a lot of.
I mean, you honestly, you have the perfect test case and motivation. You know, you were talking about your son, right?
That's all.
That's if that doesn't drive you to make, you know, his future better, you know, what are we here for? So I think, you know, it just goes back to my point about, if you can deploy technology from your head into the digital space that can actually help another human being, you're wrong if you don't. That's my perspective. If you have that gift or that capability and you don't deploy it in that fashion, you're wrong. You're misusing your gifts. So, you know, maybe some people don't have the stomach for it, whatever. I understand that, but you know, if the more diversity we have in the tech space, the less we'll have to worry about the big tech running everything.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, actually, how in this part of the world, how important is the local language, the Arabic? I mean, you see the government trying to promote that kind of investment in content in the Arabic language.
Right. So I think from a cultural perspective, it's important, but you know, on a global scale, like I read somewhere that, I don't know, like in 100 years or something, 90% of the world is going to speak English, and the other 10% are going to be like, you know, phased out languages and things like that. So from a cultural perspective, I think it's very important to you know, keep those around, to keep those functional and in use.
Yeah.
But I see, you know, moving forward in the digital space, that's why I go back to universities having a dedicated system to generate local, regional text, imagery, and content. Because the faster we move into the digital space with Gen AI, it's going to be spinning up more and more and more and more English, more and more bias level, whatever we put in.
Content exponential now, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And the human brain will never keep up. We as humans will not be able to keep up with the data that gets. We can't even keep up with the data generated from the IoT space, to be honest.
Yeah, true.
Let alone, you know, now there's Gen AI on top of it. So I think, you know, it should be more important than it is currently from a regional perspective.
So I had two.
Again, that's private sector funding.
Cool.
No, once again, it's private sector funding that has to get involved.
Two final questions then from me, if nobody else is going to do. Right. So one is, if you're a graduate today and you want to work in this space, what do you think are the most important skills to learn? And second, slightly more personal, what's the most fun project you've ever worked on?
Wow. Most important thing for students, data.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter. Honestly, you could be the greatest, mathematician, algorithm developer, Python coder, whatever. It doesn't matter. You can know all the, TensorFlow, whatever skill set, PyTorch you want to get into, all these toolkits, CUDA, all of that. If your data is not wrangled, you will waste a month trying to figure out why your data set is broken.
Yeah.
It doesn't, this, that, and other. The most fun project I've worked on, probably the solution called Vadir with the guy who's actually got his hand up, Nizam.
Okay.
It's basically a multimodal deep video analysis tool.
Okay.
So it does like deep linguistic analysis, does visual captioning, pose estimation, facial analysis, all of this stuff, extracts voice. It's a really fun project.
Awesome. Yeah. So Mohammed, please chip
Yeah,
in.
hi, Michael. Hi.
Hi.
It was nice and it was a great talk. So I want to ask you something about the Gen AI boom that we are right now on. So, how do you like differentiate between the trend that we are on right now with the Gen AI, the people who call themselves as like prompt engineers or the regular AI things, right? What is your take on that particular thing?
So Nizam trying to get me in trouble. So my take on prompt engineering is, to be completely honest, it's a highly skilled Google searcher.
Mm.
It's being able to manipulate what comes out of Google just from the type of questions you ask. Is it valid in certain domains? Yes, but this whole, this is the next greatest job, I'm not really sold on that, because I just, it's formatting your question, right? And so, I've known people that were ridiculously critical thinkers. And so when you speak to them, you could tell that everything was, very measured, things like that. And they knew like how to, get something out of people, how to frame a problem, things like that. Does that necessarily make them, great psychologists or whatever? Probably not. I don't know. So that's kind of, my take on prompt engineering, to be honest. And I'm not trying to make anybody mad if that's your thing, if that's what you like to do. I think it's a valuable skill set, but I think it's a skill that's part of a greater set.
Yeah.
It should not be a focal point of.
And I would argue also the large language models are not really intelligent, are they? It's just statistics at the end of the day, probability.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah. So anybody that knows anything about NLP knows that large language models they're not even going to ever be close to AGI. It's just statistical next best probability. Yeah. That's it. Same with the imagery generators. It's just next best pixel placement, right? The reason I don't think there will be AGI anytime soon and large language models aren't even close is because there are contextual things in human speech and interactions that we know instantly that you can't model mathematically yet or right now. And I'm quite sure there's a lot of people that can argue, well, what about blah 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 blah, this, that, and the other. At the end of the day, there's no robot, there's no bot, no chat bot that is advanced enough to replace a human being in your life. That's why AGI is not close. Now, if we start getting to those levels, then maybe I'll go back on. I ate my words on this. But so that's always my kind of distinction when people say, well, what about this and blah 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 blah. Would you replace a human being in your life with this? The answer is probably going to be no. So then it's not AGI. It's not sentient. It's not intelligent enough to have the interactions that we as humans have grown to expect. So, and that's kind of my definition of AGI. It's just that super knowledgeable, all encompassing, it can.
How long do you think before we get there?
I don't.
It's hard.
Quantum, maybe quantum. Whenever we actually develop quantum, because then you're talking about, you know, being able to calculate the number of the variability or variables of the human experience possible.
Right. Do you think?
So that would be
I mean, going back to the 50s when you had the Turing who started, you know, thinking about AI, so you had this Turing test where if you cannot distinguish between a human and a computer, then it's effectively a human you're talking to. But
right, but so
could be a large
part
language
caveat,
model. Yeah.
Right, but part of the caveat to that goes back to what has big tech trained us to do, right? Shorter attention spans, less critical thinking. Our education system doesn't, you know, drive in critical thinking. So is AI getting, you know, close, or are we just dumbing ourselves down?
Yeah.
That we're not actually, you know, engaged as much as we normally would be, right?
Yeah.
So
True.
I mean, I don't know what the answer is, but that's just one man's perspective.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
like I said, I think technology is great. I think it can be used in so many spectacular ways, and I think that what's going to get humanity there is diversity. It's honestly, it's the diversity, because talent is not concentrated. It's God has seen fit to spread talent, you know, across the globe. And there's somebody right now in I don't know, Sudan, and somebody right now in, you know, Bangladesh, and somebody right now in Mongolia that if they were able to find each other and work together, would come out with the next Google beater or AWS beater or things like that. And I would love to see that. So that's why I'm a proponent of
absolutely
more access, more data, more access.
So there's more innovation.
Hands down. That's why we actually post majority of our models to Hugging Face. You go to our Hugging Face right now. We have over 250 downloads, or 250,000 downloads comprehensively of all of our models, because that's what's going to keep the wheels on the bus, to be completely honest. You have to celebrate, you know, Jan LeCun for keeping, you know, Mark Zuckerberg and Meta honest with, you know, the Llama models. And I'm, you know, really interested in seeing what they do with Llama 3 coming out here shortly. So
yeah, for sure. It's good. Amazing stuff. Right. So anybody want to make any final point? Because we're very close to the end of the time. Azam, you're in the conversation. What I will say is you won the Python challenge this week. We run a weekly Python challenge, Michael, on LinkedIn.
Oh, nice.
I
think Wisely had a question.
Oh, did I miss one? Sorry, I might have missed one. Oh, go ahead. If you want to put your hand up, and then you can speak. You just unblock yourself, Waji, if you want to speak, or just put the question here in the chat, and I'll read it out. Unmute yourself. Are you there, Waji?
Waji?
Hello. No, he seems to have disappeared.
He put it in the chat. He says, I heard you talk about supply chain. I'm a chief procurement officer of Vessel, and I study data AI. Okay, so what's your question? You can unmute yourself.
Yeah, speak if you can, Raji. We'll give him a few seconds to type. Maybe he's a bit shy.
Right. That's fine.
Okay, while he's typing. What else? Yeah. So
so you were announcing the winner of the Python challenge?
Yeah. So I know Azam's there in the call. He's on the call. So congratulations. So to Azam, and Mohammed will be in touch with you with your certificate. And we have a collaboration with Pact. It's a publisher for data science and AI books. So,
they have a lot of courses on Udemy that are really good.
Yeah. So we were sending those books out to you. Mohammed will contact you directly. So congratulations to Azam. That's not the first time he's won it. He's very good at these things.
Oh, so his question was, he wanted to know if this new field have an importance in his actual work. If it's regarding AI and supply chain, you best believe it.
Yeah.
They're using it. So my initial master's concentration was in ERP, and I know Walmart has probably one of, if not the most advanced demand management inventory supply control systems on the planet. They can tell you down to the milliliter and millisecond what milk is on what store shelf available where, and when it will be replenished, what time the truck gets there, what time the person will take the pallet off the truck, actually put it on the display ready for purchase. So, you know, with what is it called? Just-in-time shipping, things like that. You better believe.
So
if
many
you're in
opportunities
supply
in
chain,
retail, yeah.
you better believe it's going to impact your job. Now it'll be phased like everything, but it's definitely something that, you know, I would start looking into, just to be completely honest. AI and supply chain, and what are some use cases? What are some edge cases? You know, things like that. Where have things gone wrong?
I would say, like, you may not be replaced by AI, but you might be replaced by somebody who's embraced AI and knows how to use it to improve your processes and your business.
Hands down. I mean, there's tools like, you know, what is it? Microsoft BI that they connected to their whole data fabric, which is SQL database, all of the data storage all over. And you can literally go through, they have a Copilot plugin that can generate a report for you from all of your different data sources using Power BI and deploy it as a, you know, I guess a business unit accessible web interface.
Yeah.
So if that's what you're into, yes, I would highly look into these types of systems. Now, granted, that's not necessarily like AI development. That's more of the like low code, kind of no code approach to things that's enabling AI in your space. But I would definitely, you know, look into what solutions are available.
We have
and then that's a perfect opportunity for you to see what's not available. And then there's your gap, there's your idea.
If there's anybody here that's not part of our community, it's at nas.io/artificial intelligence. And we have a ton of courses on the basics of AI and more advanced stuff. So I'm putting the link in the chat now. You can join that for free, and you can get more involved with the future events. We hold free online events every week, plus lots of physical events coming up and workshops and things like that. Michael, thank you so much for your time. We would love to have you back, and maybe at a physical event coming up as well. We'd love to have a panel discussion with you. I think we've got maybe there's one up in March, but we'll be in touch with you. We're definitely going to drag you over there.
Hey, I would love to do it. I love you know, talking about AI and, you know, how it can help people. I also put our YouTube channel in the chat, so that can kind of help give you guys some ideas on, you know, what's possible if you know, do work for a current organization or you want to start your own thing. Just it's not even remotely comprehensive. There's like 80 some videos that
I've subscribed already. And if you want to, you'd love hackathons clearly. So if you'd like to organize co-organize a hackathon with us later on in the year, then we'd love to do that as well.
Oh, hands down, that would be spectacular. Yes, I would love that. But so I like them in person.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we can do it. We'll find a solution for that. We'll do it in person.
Spectacular. Spectacular.
Wonderful. Everybody, thank you very much for joining. Same time back next week. There'll be recording of this posted into the content thing if you've got access to it. And thank you everybody very much. We'll see you on Saturday. Tomorrow at 12 o'clock, we've got our LinkedIn audio event about careers. And Tuesday, we've got our AI show. So come and join us for that as well. Thank you, Michael. Have a good day, everybody, the rest of the weekend. Take care.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Take
care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.